Welcome to the world of probiotic foods. This is Cultured Food Life with your host, Donna Schwenk.
Welcome, everybody. This week, we are going to be talking about probiotics for things like anxiety and depression. And you're going to be very surprised to understand how it all works in the body. It's a very interesting thing. And about 2 years ago, I was teaching a class. And there was a woman in the front of my class. And it was one of my trilogy classes where I teach people how to make cultured foods. And there was a woman in the front of the room in the very first row. And her eyes kept filling up with tears. And when we took a break, she came up to me and she said that she had been on antidepressants for, I can't even remember how many years. It was many, many years, at least 5 or 6 years. And she said that these foods had helped her to get off her medications. And she was so grateful that she wanted to learn to make more cultured foods. I believe she said it was Kefir. And with tears streaming down her face, she said she was so grateful because she felt so much better. And what a difference it had made in her life. And she began to tell me all the things in her life that had changed due to the fact that she wasn't depressed anymore. She had a new job, she had a new baby, she had a new house. All these wonderful things were happening to her because that veil had lifted. And lo and behold, the problems were starting in her gut, and she never even knew that. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. It's so interesting. I mean, for years, we've known that our emotions can affect our digestive system. Anybody who's had like a queasy stomach before they, speak to a group of people or have a presentation, or the feeling you get when you know something you're getting to do is wrong, you'll get kind of an uneasy feeling and you kind of know that it's not the right thing to do, or you get things in your, kind of a stomach distress if something's going on. Now, I do this all the time. And the more I've gotten connected to my body and the more I've started to really listen to my body, the more it gives me signals all the time about what to do and what not to do. And we're all connected. It's connected, the gut is connected through the vagus nerve that goes all the way up to the brain. And they call the gut the second brain. And rightfully so, because it does teach us so many things about not only our physical bodies and how we are feeling healthy-wise, but also our emotions. When we have the brain to gut effect, it can work in both directions. It can help us understand that bacteria plays a huge role that can communicate directly or indirectly with our brains to determine our moods. And perhaps the most basic sense of who we are can be understood by the bacteria in our gut. And scientists have been talking about this gut microbiome brain axis for a long time now. And I'd say the last 6-7 years, they've really connected to it. And there's a professor of psychiatry at the University of College Cork in Ireland named Ted Donna. And he's one of the world's leading researchers on this subject. And there are 3 basic mechanisms underlying this it's so astonishing connection between these invisible microbes. And remember, we have 10 trillion of those microbes in our body and on our body. But he teaches us that these 3 basic mechanisms that connect us between these invisible microorganisms and our very personalities that we know as ourselves. Bacteria that live in our gut, they travel through it abroad, some cultured foods like kefir. They come through our systems as we eat these probiotics, and they're in the necessary building blocks of neurochemicals like serotonin and dopamine. They impact on neurochemicals is just astounding. They're just starting to really understand this. And it plays an effect on the secretion of stress hormones like cortisol. And all of these different chemicals in the brain all are governed by many things going on in the gut. The little gut bugs play a very vital role in regulating our immune system. And when inflammation gets turned on, it can make things go haywire. And inflammation is now widely considered to be one of the biggest causes of depression. And so many of us are inflamed and we don't even know it. We don't even know the symptoms of inflammation. But it's one of the big causes of heart disease. It's one of the problems with diabetes, depression. There's many things that happen when your body gets inflamed. And all these different chemicals that we're talking about, they can make happy hormones or they can make stress chemicals in our brain. And it's a trio of forces. Serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, all of these different things govern our mental health. And scientists are really just now beginning to unravel the effects it has on all of us. But here's a really cool thing. A group of psychiatrists are starting to lean away from prescribing drugs, and instead, they're focusing on fixing the guts of their patient, and they're having huge success. James Greenblatt, he's an assistant clinical professor of psychiatry at Tufts University School of Medicine. He got really interested in cases on which he had evidence of bacterial and psychotic imbalances. And many of the cases he studied showed elevated levels of one type of bacteria, which was a pathogen called Clostridia. And these byproducts of this bug interfered with the way the neurochemical dopamine got processed in their colon. And when dopamine builds up as it does, Dr. Greenblatt believed that these particular bacteria afflicted the patients and would get a severe form of psychiatric illness. And these particular people he was working with, the results were so dramatic. And he found that when he fixed this particular bug in the gut with probiotics, the patients got better. It blew his mind. He was really shocked by this. And it was happening with regularity and all of these patients with pretty severe psychiatric illnesses. And there's another psychiatrist, and she's in Manhattan, in New York, named Kelly Brogren. And she has an exhaustive knowledge of brain-soothing antidepressants. And for years, she would confidently, help her patients with the worst psychological episodes. And she found herself, always, giving them all these antidepressants. But it wasn't until something happened to her, and she began prescribing powerful antidepressants to pregnant women. And at the time, she was pregnant, and then something snapped in her. Because she thought, I would never take these medications myself now that I'm pregnant. And she realized that there had to be a better way. And she also realized that the swelling number of prescriptions for the psychiatric drugs had really done nothing to slow the rising tide of the mental illness diagnosis. And she kept giving, more and more patients were needing them. And she realized that they really weren't making people better. They were just making them dependent on the drugs. And this had been going on for decades. And so she decided to do something different because of what she was experiencing as a pregnant woman. She never would have ever prescribed that for herself. And she didn't want to do that anymore. So she turned her back on prescribing her patients antidepressants. And she started to try to heal her patients' digestive systems instead. She pretty much banished the antidepressants and replaced it with the probiotic lactobacillus and other probiotics, and started spending more time talking to her patients about gastrointestinal symptoms rather than the emotional ones. And the results spoke for themselves. Her women-only Manhattan-based practice sprouted a waiting list of 6 to 8 months. She said, I can't even remember the last patient I wasn't able to help by doing this. And then other doctors were following suit with wonderful results. And patients would, not only feel their depression lift, but they would experience a sense of well-being they never knew. And this is not something that's uncommon to me because I've experienced it myself. In the very beginning, it was the very first time I'd ever started making and drinking kefir, and that was about 16 years ago. And I remember I had started drinking kefir, and I was giving it to my daughter too, because she was a tiny little baby that was thriving when I gave her kefir. And so I started taking it myself. And at the time I had depression, but I had mostly because I had diabetes, I had blood pressure, I had all these problems. And so I just didn't feel good. And I started drinking kefir. And after about 3 weeks, I will never forget this. And this is in my story video if you ever want to watch it, but on YouTube there. And I was standing in the kitchen doing dishes. And I remember looking out the window, and all of a sudden, I found myself in the front yard filling up all my bird feeders. Now, this may not seem like a very big deal to you, but it was to me because weeks before, I didn't give a rip about the birds. They could get their own food. I just felt so bad I didn't care about them. But suddenly, I felt so good that I wanted to get the birds some food, because I remember standing in that front yard and looking at the grass, and I could hear the birds singing, and I was like, what in the world is this feeling I have? It was a sense of well-being that I believe I have never known. It was this joy that came bubbling out of me because I felt good, and I had just forgotten that I could feel good. Oh, I didn't even know if I'd forgotten. I didn't even know if I knew that I could feel that good. And that was a turning point in my life, because I never wanted to lose that feeling again. But I had discovered later on that week that my blood sugar numbers had normalized, my blood pressure went down to a normal range. I felt fantastic. And when you feel good, everything changes for you. It kind of opens up your heart. You want to care for other people. You want to help other people. And it's because you feel good. When you don't feel good, everything gets masked. Everything gets pushed down because you're kind of just surviving. And that depression that I had lifted, and that sense of well-being that I found that day has carried on 16 years, as long as I continue to eat these foods and take care of myself. But I want to tell you something. I didn't know how bad I felt till I felt good. That's the truth. I didn't know I could feel that good. And I don't want you to go through your life not realizing that. That is why I do this, because I remember how bad it was, guys. It was awful. And I didn't know that right on the other side was this joyous life that I had never had. It was extraordinary to me. I can't tell you the passion that came out of me. I became a writer. Guys, I never wanted to write in my whole life. I never written anything in my whole life. Be an author, that was a joke to me, because I think the only thing I ever wrote was in 6th grade, and it was a story about ice cream that my teacher put on the board. But other than that, I had never really written anything of any importance, and I didn't want to be an author because I didn't like writing. And when I started to feel better, all these things started to emerge in my life. I started helping people get better because I felt so good. I wanted to help my friends, and I wanted to help their kids, and they started getting better. And then people started bugging me, and they wanted me to write books, and they wanted me to teach classes. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. That's just something I don't want to do. And they just kept bugging me because they felt so good. They wanted me to help other people. And so with all that, I decided I would try to write a book because people just wouldn't leave me alone. And lo and behold, I found out I liked it. I put music on, I would write, and this gift emerged that I didn't even know existed inside of me, because it was covered up with sickness and disease. It was covered up with stress and depression. And when all those things lifted, I became an author and a speaker, and things that I never even knew could happen to me emerged. And 16 years later, I don't even recognize my life. And that's what I wish for you. You guys, life is so fun. It is such a magical journey. And it is so fantastic when you feel good. Things happen to you that you can't imagine. And these foods have given me back my life. I told my web guy the other day that Kefir is the love of my life. Don't tell my husband, he won't like that. But it's true. It is just the thing that changed my whole world in a way that allowed me to live a life that I never even knew existed. And fixing your gut is something you really need to consider. If you are struggling with any kind of emotional upset, your gut is your biggest asset. And we don't get told that because we just try to cover it up with drugs or, things that make us feel temporarily better, but it's just a Band-Aid. And when you fix your gut, then you're free. The chains fall off and you feel fantastic. And those emotions that you were struggling with lift because your body it's just a chemical factory. Your body's making chemicals all day long. And when you learn how to harness the power of fixing your gut and feeling good and eating the right foods, it fixes itself. And the expensive drugs you buy and the side effects you get them are no more. And then you're free. Nothing has been more effective for me when I've had anxiety or stress than these cultured foods I love so much. If you're not familiar with these foods that I'm talking about, they're kefir, kombucha, and cultured vegetables, kefir sodas. All of these things are foods that are probiotic in nature. And there's more probiotics in one spoonful of a cultured vegetable than there is in a whole supplement bottle of probiotics. And they're easy to make, and I help you make them because I don't do anything hard, and I don't do anything that I don't teach you anything that I wouldn't do myself. That's my rule, because I want it to be something that's accessible, that something's easy. And guys, I take all the scariness out of this because I've been doing this a really long time. I live this. I've been doing it for 16 years, so I know all the tips and tricks and all the way to do it the easiest way. And I'm not going to scare you and tell you got to buy fancy equipment and fancy this and that, because I want you to do it, because I want you to feel better. And so I show you the easiest, most effective method and the ones that I do every day. And if you get nervous about it, then you just need to come hang out with me. Check out my website, go to my Facebook page, and I'll encourage you, come to my class. I'm having a new class on May 5th, a kefir class. And guys, I teach you so much, but I inspire you, because sometimes when you're doing something new, you need to just hang around somebody for a little while till you get the hang of it and becomes a habit. And that's a great place to start. I'm teaching a class May 5th in Valley Center, California at the Lavender Farm. Guys, we're going to be doing kefir soda. We're going to do water kefir. We're going to do non-dairy kefir. We're going to do dairy kefir. We're going to do kefir cheese. I'm going to show you how you can make cultured vegetables with the whey from kefir. We're going to show you dips that you can make, things you can make every single day in your life. Guys, I've got recipes that are like 2 ingredients that are probiotic in nature that you eat all the time, and you just don't know that you can make them probiotic. And we're going to have lots of samples. And most of all, we're going to hang out together, and I'm going to inspire you to understand what I learned so many years ago. And I wanted to help you change your life, because sometimes you just need somebody to just spend a little time with, get a little information, keep checking back with me, like on Facebook or Instagram or my website, and it will help you to get started. And it's so easy. It's not hard. Wellness is so multifaceted. It's mind, body, and soul. And there are so many tools that can help you. But if you don't feel good, your body doesn't feel good, then you can't really live your life the way you were meant to live. And I want to tell you about the trilogy. This is my secret weapon. It has changed my life and so many others. And the trilogy is 3 magical and powerful foods that I consume almost every day. And they're kefir, kombucha, and cultured vegetables. And I can't tell you the joy they bring me, more than words can express. And this is the thing that I noticed, is when people consume all 3, they get better because of the multi-strains of bacteria in all these different foods. They're unique and individual unto themselves, but each one has a different set of bacteria and good yeast that we need to thrive and feel alive. For instance, like homemade kefir, which is my absolute favorite because it has 50 good plus bacteria, and it's where I started. It's so powerful that I recommend you only consume a small amount in the beginning, just like 1/4 to 1/2 cup, and then you can have as much as you want later on. But as you ingest all of those good bacteria, they're so strong, they're going to start killing the pathogens and bad bacteria, and you can have what they call a healing crisis. And they're going to exit from the body, and sometimes they give off toxins when they die. But you're changing your microbiome to the good bacteria, and it's going to thrive, and it's going to clean you out like a SWAT team and allow you to have the gut microbes that you need. Kefir is really, really special to me. I have it, guys, I have it every morning. It's the thing that keeps me in balance. You can bake it with any kind of dairy or non-dairy milk. I've got 16 different non-dairy recipes, and you can do it with goat's milk. You can do it with almond milk, and it will transform your milk that sits upon your counter. And it just loads it with probiotics. It increases the B vitamins, and skyrockets the folic acid. It adds vitamin C, and it takes like 24 hours to make, and you don't need any special equipment. You just need a jar. And if you want to learn more, come to my class May 5th, and you can find all the info at culturedfoodlife.com. And you're going to make a jar of kefir and take it home, and that jar is going to make you another jar and another jar and another jar. And I'm going to show you how to do all kinds of things with it that's going to blow your mind. It's really one of the foods I think that is, if you're going to start anywhere, I think you should start there because that's where I started. And it's phenomenal because it has the most probiotics in it. Kombucha is another one that I absolutely love. And I mean, I really love this tea. And it's powerful. It's wonderful. It helps remove toxins. It helps flush out the kidneys, and it assists the liver. It helps the bowels, and it can help you lose a lot of excess water weight. And it's just one of those things, if you have a lot of swelling and accumulation in your tissues or arthritis from the chemically laden foods that we eat all the time, kombucha really helps with that. That's one of the things that I love about it, is that it helps me I can just tell it will purge those toxins from me, and it makes me lose a lot of excess water weight that maybe inflammation has caused me to, hang on to. And kombucha helps with water retention because when the body is protecting the organs, it holds on to water. And that's when you're under heavy stress or a toxic load. And so you really want something that will assist you. And this is a bubbly drink. It's made from tea. It's fantastic. You can have different flavors. It's available to buy just about everywhere anymore, from grocery stores to health food stores in the refrigerated section. And just grab a bottle and give it a try. It's so good for you. There's a gazillion different flavors, and I think it would greatly assist you. It has a probiotic yeast in it that cannot be killed by antibiotics. But not only that, it's one of the most powerful antibiotics on the market. The way that it works is so impressive. They use it in hospitals. It's Sacrum Eisler, and it is just a fantastic probiotic because it's a probiotic yeast, and we don't talk a lot about that, but we need good yeast because it helps control candida. It's unrelated to candida because it actually steals the food from candida, so candida dies and it flourishes. It protects the mucosal lining of the body, keeps you from getting leaky gut. It helps elimination. It's fantastic. And I wrote an entire blog on this on my website at culturedfoodlife.com. And you ought to really read it. It's pretty powerful and something that you really do want to take as often as you can. Cultured vegetables. Oh my, this is the time of year everybody starts making cultured vegetables, and they're so good for you guys. And it's so easy to make. If you can chop up vegetables and put them in a jar and cover them with water and put in a culture, then you can make cultured vegetables. And you don't need fancy equipment, and you don't need to freak out because you're going to do it wrong. Because the cool thing about this is cultured vegetables, when you do it this way and you do it the way I teach you, the good bacteria is so dominant, it keeps out pathogens. And it's literally impossible to get botulism from cultured vegetables because the only way you can get botulism is to heat the vegetables and kill all the bacteria, and then only botulism survives. And then you got to can it. And that can never happen in cultured vegetables, scientifically impossible. And so I teach you how to make cultured vegetables. It's super fun. You can do just about any vegetable. And they have a powerful bacterium called Lactobacillus plantarum. And that is just a fantastic bacteria. You want to get to know this one because it is your friend. It can help you greatly with anxiety and depression. It's wonderful for your gut. This is one I really recommend if you're struggling with anxiety. And kefir too. Kefir is wonderful for that too. They did a study in psychiatric research in College of William of Mary with 710 students who were taking psychology courses. They were all given a questionnaire about how many fermented foods they ate on a regular basis and how much anxiety and social awkwardness they felt. And students with a high degree of anxiety began eating more fermented foods, and they began to have less and less symptoms of stress and anxiety. And it was a pretty interesting study. These kids, the kids who ate the fermented foods didn't have the anxiety anymore, or they had it and it went away, or they didn't have it at all. And what they found was these probiotics help to reduce inflammation throughout the body. And the gut is so crucial to well-being. And there are so many foods that I recommend with tons of vegetables and fibrous foods that make the good bacteria grow, and they're called prebiotics. And the more you have those, the more you have fruits and vegetables, especially the prebiotic ones, and those are things like berries and nuts and seeds and things like lemons, oranges, bananas, leeks, onions, jicama. There's just a million of broccoli. All of these types of fibrous vegetables have two types of fiber, soluble and insoluble. And the soluble is the one that the bacteria eats and grows and multiplies. So when you have a lot of those, you change your microbiome, because not only do you get the probiotics from the cultured foods, but you feed them with these prebiotic foods. And you guys, you can feel better in like less than a week. It can be an amazing journey for you. And when you discover ways to take care of your body and help your body feel better, it's such a cool thing, because then you become, your own pharmacy. Your body makes your own pharmacy of drugs inside of you. And when you discover that you can tap into that and help your body get what it needs and manufacture it just by the food that you eat, it's an amazing thing. It'll change your whole life. You'll be feeding your birds all over the place. I'm telling you, it works. You're going to want to help everybody, because we're all brothers and sisters in this. And when one of us feels better, it spreads to the others. And it becomes a wonderful epidemic of wellness. It happened with me, with my friends and my kids, the kids that my older kids hung around, they got better. And I watched it spread. And it just takes one person to make the change. And it helps so many others. And when you live in a community of people that feel good and you're helping one another and they're empowered to know how their bodies work, it changes everything. And I remember my daughter was taking dance lessons, and the kids would always go in for dance practice, and they would bring in their pops and their drinks. And I remember the day, it was after about a year or so of me finding these culture foods and making kombucha. And my daughter Macy loves kombucha, and she made a lot. Well, she got all her friends to start drinking kombucha. And I remember one day walking into her dance class and seeing all the girls walking in with kombucha bottles. And that was just a thrill for me to see these teenagers drinking these probiotic beverages instead of the, soda pops they used to be drinking that really wreak havoc on your body. And it just took one person, and that's all that it took. And once my daughter started doing it, she told her friends, and then they told her friends, and everybody started doing it, and everybody started feeling better. And it was an amazing thing to watch. And you can do that too, but start with yourself. When you change yourself, you change those around you. When you love yourself enough to do this, because guys, you don't want to go through life not feeling good. You just don't know what you're missing. It's just fantastic to feel good all the time. It makes life a really magical journey, which it should be. It should be for you. So I hope this helped you. I hope it encourages you. Check out my class. I'd love to meet you at my class, guys. I love talking to the people that I work with and meeting them in person. There's just nothing like it. It's just fantastic for me and for you. And we help each other in a way that, when we're face to face, there's nothing like that. So check out my class at culturedfoodlife.com. It's the Keys Creek Lavender Farm class on May 5th, 2018. I'd love to see you there, but if not, head over to my website or to my Facebook page, Donna Schwing's Cultured Food Life. Get a little inspired every day, click on my feed, and just keep doing it until it works for you. That's what I did. So I love you. Have a great week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.